Right here, this will make you a lot of money. It will up your accuracy, up your production. So what is this and how can it make you money? This is, in fact, a story pole. So this particular one is not what I'm here to tell you about. This is the example of what a story pole is. This particular story pole is so that I can make these ProStop extensions. There are so many cuts and details and holes that have to go in a specific spot that it takes a lot of thinking and measuring to figure out where they go. And I needed one for the right and one for the left, and I want to be able to make them in the future. So this little approximately 8-inch piece of 18 mil ply now is my story pole. This is the magic, because going forward, this tells me everything I need to make this magic tool. If you want to get a detailed set of plans to build a Paulk Smart Bench, a crosscut like this, a Smart Station, or any of the accessories that work with the system, and yes, it is the Smart system, so everything is designed to work together, including the cradle, which holds a table saw, and many other benchtop tools. The Smart Cart that makes the whole system mobile and 1,000 times more efficient, or the Smart Woodshop itself. There'll be a link in the description of this video down below. You can go there and purchase any of the plans or packages of plans, and then you will be able to download them instantaneously, 365, 24/7. How wide, and I'll write on there how long, but then it helps me set up all of the tools to make all these cuts. This is where I would use 2 router tables, and as you know, I always have 2 router tables. It's just the way I work for 2 reasons. One is it helps me be more productive so that I can set up a machine for an operation and have the other machine for a second operation. Sometimes even a third would be nice. In fact, in this case, 3 would be nice. So I do have to reset one, this one that isn't here, and set it up for this groove or this dado. I put it up against that fence. I chuck in the proper bit, which this tells me, just I can measure it or write it on there, but I know which bit to use. Chuck it in, use this to set not only the fence to the edge, but also the depth of the cut. So I would dial it in so that I would have this, no measuring, just boop, boop, set up, done, ready to go. Then over at this one, take this bit here, which is my bit I use for my shop-made T-track, because I have T-track running through, have that bit chucked in, and then set this up for, again, the spacing from the fence, dial the fence in, and also the height of the blade. Done, no measuring. I would then take this long piece that's been ripped to the right width and go ahead and cut it to the right length, and I would run it through, flip it over, run it through, and I would have those 2 cuts done. Then the third one is a very shallow 18 mil dado, or again, slot groove where the tape measure drops in. I would take, in fact, this is the bit, set it up, again, spacing, automatic, and the height of the blade, set it. So there, with this story pole, I can make this complicated piece without pulling out a tape measure even once. So I can make it a lot faster. I'll be more accurate because, you know, making something, oh, the other thing, it even has the holes for drilling out for the bolts. So when I lay that, I can actually use this, put it right on the edge, and use it as a drill guide just to go ahead and drill right through and make the one hole. That's what a story pole does. I can make it exactly right, no chance for error. How does this story pole help you if you're not building this, or if you've already built those and you don't need to build more? Yeah, having those will make you money and more profitable because they're accurate and you don't have to follow a tape measure. They do their thing. They're a tool, and this helps you make that tool. Story poles I have used in the field, in construction, for decades. Framing and finish, particularly finish. So there's where I'll give you the verbal examples because I'm not doing the finish job to tell you. A story pole can be as simple, and most of the time it's simply a stick with marks on it and a word saying what that mark is. So in a mantle, for example, if you've got a certain mantle that you build, you lay it out probably on the wall, on the drywall, and you take your story pole and you make all of those marks on your story pole, and it shows you where all your cuts are going to be and where your trim pieces are going to be, so you can make marks and lines and then take, long levels and things and make or snap lines and get it exactly right. And if you save that story pole and write on what it is, then you can repeat that mantle time and time again. And back when I was exclusively a finish carpenter and would go in and do only finishing houses for other builders, and I worked solo back then most of the time, I did everything from putting in subfloor cabinets, lining window, trimming windows, hanging interior doors, trimming the doors, the whole package, stair rails, curved staircase rails, all of that stuff. And I always built mantels. It was one of my specialties. Rather than them buying them out, I would give them a bid, and I would provide the materials, labor installed, ready to paint. And I had story poles so that I could build a particular design. And I had, 5, 6 designs, and we would pick the right one for the house. I had photos of them, and then whatever one the builder picked, I could pull out the story pole, which in that case was simply a piece of either 1x2 or 1x4. It was usually made either out of plywood rips or pine. And just save it. They don't take up hardly any space. In the same vein with trimming a house, running the crown molding, especially if it were more than one piece crown, and then if there were trim in the middle laid for chair rail, and then base molding, and if there's a freeze board, all the different detailing, you take one board, that was usually a 1x4, you go and lay it out from the base all the way up to how many ever pieces of crown, and that would tell the story. I would know exactly where each piece went, and it helped me with layout when I'm figuring out a whole house, because I could take it around and check window heights, door height, interior door heights, and make adjustments so that the trim flowed through. A lot of times moving at a ½ an inch and things flow through versus notching over things, because sometimes door trims are different, and so they're taller, or maybe you're doing shorter doors, a standard 6/8 door in one house, you might be doing an 8/0 on another house, and then occasionally those beautiful 7-foot doors, very rare, but one of my favorite heights. So you got all of that, and your story pole will help you figure it out, and then you could make marks like for your first piece of crown, and you could then put your laser on that or snap a line and go right to it. back in the day when I didn't have lasers, line lasers, that's what I did. I snapped chalk lines all over the house. You'd come in to a house when I was getting ready to trim a highly detailed house, and you would see chalk lines everywhere where the trim was going to go, and I would have it completely laid out. From that, I could confirm that I had all the material. If usually the builder supplied, there were stacks, but if I were going to be short, then I would let the builder know exactly what I needed before I even started. So I knew where I was going to finish, and it helped me be more productive. And I got to tell you, builders loved it. There were so few finish carpenters that walked onto a job and spent a few hours without cutting anything to figure out how am I going to finish so that I could get there quicker. And that time I spent, especially with my story poles, that was paid back on every single job multiple times. I will say that probably my story pole saved me a day. My story poles, which allowed me to plan, saved me a day at minimum on the typical house. I mean, full 8 to 10 hour day I saved on every single job, simply by investing a little time into a piece of 1x4 or 1x2. Now trim, that's really where it excels, and in pieces, unique pieces you build, having these and saving them. I mean, look at that. It's just a piece of scrap 18 mil ply. It's not very big, and I can throw this in a drawer, label it, and it never gets in my way. It can be in the Smart Woodshop, or it can just be in a bin or shelf in my garage with all of my story poles and templates and patterns and all those things. In framing, same thing. When I would frame a house, typically I only framed houses that were mine, meaning that I designed them and I was building them as the builder. I, in fact, built over 200 homes in my career, and most of them were customs, but quite a few were not really spec homes, but homes where I bought the land, designed, and built the house without an end client, where I sold it somewhere in the process. So I would design and think about everything as a finish carpenter, the things that I had run into over the years. And one of them is like when you have two doors coming into a corner, I want to figure out what millwork, what finish material is going to trim the sides of those doors, because I want it to be the same distance, the same width. I don't want to have a piece that's ripped, except I want the piece going this way and the piece going this way to look the same, which means actually one piece is ripped because one's behind the other. You want them to be the same. But that's where you have to plan your framing so that your opening, where you're going to put your king stud and your trim stud into that corner at exactly the right point, so that after drywall and after the door is hung, when you put that trim on, it's going to fit in that corner perfect. The way that works on a story pole is, as I'm designing the house and I'm thinking about that, and I make my story pole for that house, I can write on that story pole that spacing. Of course, I put it on the plans too, but that spacing to know exactly where to get it when I'm setting that king stud trimmer pack in that corner. Then window heights, sill heights, the tops of windows, how they interact with crown molding and with base molding, and if there's chair rail, and also if it's a sill, is it a low window, a high window? All of that can be put on the story pole, a single story pole, to do an entire house. And then when I'm framing, I can lay that out and check things with that story pole just to make sure that everything is getting done properly, so that I'm not taking things apart and making small adjustments to get them to fit later. So you can use it for all that finish detail. A single story pole can tell the entire story of all the trim in the house. The framing, the same thing, getting things just right, so all the heights are right, or all the widths are right, all that stuff is right, so that when the house is turned over to the finished carpenter, or if you're the finished carpenter also, then it's ready to go, and you're not, again, tearing things apart to get them just right. Also, if you're a cabinet installer, that's actually where I started with my first story pole, was figuring out the layout of my cabinets so that I got the uppers where they needed to be and the lowers laid out. I could take that story pole with everything laid out and go around and put marks on the wall and know right where to go. Now there is one little trick with a story pole that will help, and it changed when lasers came on the scene. Rather than making it drop on the floor, which is what I did for years, and that's fine. If you're the framer, hopefully the floor is level, and so that's your laser line. But if you want to really be precise, then you can make your story pole so it's a little bit off the floor. An inch is enough, just so you can move it up and down, and then make a mark on your story pole that is for your laser line. And it's just a reference. And then you can turn on your laser, get it dialed in, and then take this around the room, and then rather than dropping it on the floor, put it on that laser line. And then you'll know that every mark you make is perfectly level according to your laser line. Again, with cabinetry, you can do that. It really is handy to figure out all of the things you're going to do and be prepared. Now take that concept and just be creative. Use your artistic and your engineering skills, and think about how using the story pole for just about anything you do in carpentry, woodworking, framing, it doesn't matter. Siding, siders, story poles for siders are a given. If you like this video, if it helped you think about a way that you can improve your accuracy, your efficiency, and your profitability, then make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and encourage me to dig in and think about the things that I've learned and done over the past 3 decades of being a finished carpenter and a home builder and a remodeler. There's so much stuff there, I have to think about it sometimes, to think about what just I would do, and it became habit, and I didn't think about the fact that, hey, it might have taken years of mistakes to finally come up with this one idea. And if I can share those with you, then you can skip the mistake part and jump right in and really leverage it and do even more with it than I've ever done. Mahalo for hanging out with me in the Smart Woodshop.